Member for Johnston.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. Mr Deputy Speaker, I rise tonight to talk about our beautiful migratory shorebirds as a proud patron of the annual Darwin-Garramilla Shorebird Festival ahead of this Saturday's event as we farewell them on their long journey home from Darwin Harbour. Mr Deputy Speaker, imagine a bird's eye view of Darwin Harbour. Shades of green mark the variety of mangrove trees that border the blue and murky brown water, lapping the soft mud that surrounds the mangroves. Beyond the mangroves, you see the bare earth of sand, mud, salt marsh, a type of vegetation that is designed to cope in salty environments. Bordering the harbour edges are buildings and homes, but it's in the bare earth amongst the mangroves that your eye gets caught, and amongst this we see life, invertebrates such as shellfish and birds. These birds are known as shorebirds, specialised to live in coastal environments, on beaches, rocky reefs, salt marsh, mangroves and the muddy edges. These birds are the ultimate endurance athletes, migrating between global poles and calling the southern hemisphere home for up to 7 months of the year. Mr Deputy Speaker, globally, shorebirds are highly threatened because of changes to landscapes and environments across many jurisdictions. The shorebirds we see here in Australia migrate in what is known as the East Asian Australian Flyway, with 37 species of migratory shorebirds travelling to Australia every year. And, Madam Speaker, shorebirds in this flyway have been declining faster than any other group of shorebirds across the world. This has largely been due to the loss or distraction of coastal environments and wetlands. And in Australia, the biggest threat to shorebirds is coastal development and disturbance. And because of this habitat loss and other compounding threats, multiple species have declined over several decades. Today, we have 15 migratory shorebirds currently listed under the Commonwealth's Environment Protection Biodiversity Conservation Act, 1999. Madam Speaker, this is a national shame. These are species that have been taking this journey, migrating across the world for millennia, and it is a rapid and unsustainable development of the coastal environment that has had the greatest impact on them. This is both a global and a local issue. What we do locally will have an impact across the world. Darwin Harbour is the home to thousands of these migratory shorebirds. They live on our beaches and in amongst mangroves. They move with the tide, feeding at low tide and resting at high tide. Darwin Harbour is a special place for shorebirds, with 35 different species of migratory shorebirds recorded. We're so incredibly fortunate to have so many species of shorebirds right on our doorstep. Australia is a critical refuge for these migratory shorebirds. Madam Speaker, the Northern Australian coastline is both a stopping and a refuelling area for shorebirds, and it's also a destination for many of these birds. Many species are highly faithful to areas in Australia. In Darwin Harbour, for instance, researchers have found a variety of species and individuals returning to the exact same beaches and mudflats in the harbour year after year. In Darwin Harbour alone, we know that 14 species of shorebirds, as I said, are on the threatened species list. This means that we here in the Northern Territory have an obligation to protect these species and their habitats. But we also have global obligations. Shorebirds are listed under the Bond Convention of Migratory Species and under several bilateral agreements with other countries. What we are seeing in Darwin Harbour is not in line with the expectations required for protecting threatened species and their habitats. We continue to see inappropriate development proposals that will impact on these amazing shorebirds and where they live. For example, the Middle Arm gas hub development is set to impact the habitat of species such as the critically endangered far eastern curlew. On Middle Arm, there is extensive habitat for many shorebirds, and it is the salt pans in amongst the lush green mangroves that is considered nationally important for the far eastern curlew. Developing coastal areas such as this and impacting on these important habitats are not actions that will help us recover a threatened species. And further along the Darwin Harbour coastline, the development by Defence Housing Australia at Lee Point will introduce an additional 3,000 people to suburbs only 2 kilometres away from the internationally important habitat at Lee Point Beach. This is problematic because of the potential impact of more people using this beach. This beach is one of the most important places for migratory shorebirds in Darwin Harbour. It's classified as a no-dog zone because of the presence of birds there. We know that disturbances by dogs is a key threatening process, and researchers have recorded chronic levels of disturbance on this beach for close to 3 decades. Despite this knowledge, despite the research and the community monitoring of these threatened shorebirds, there is still not enough being done to protect these global wonders. Madam Speaker, Darwin Harbour could be a safe haven for these shorebirds that return every year. We need to ensure that the coastal area is safe and healthy for these birds to feed and to rest. It's no small feat to fly 10,000 kilometres. Energy fuel reserves cannot be wasted on flying from disturbances on beaches or from retreating away from areas that were once reliable. Despite these challenges, there is a dedicated and passionate community of volunteers in Darwin who visit monitoring sites across the harbour every month. They count the birds and enter the data into a national monitoring database so that analysts can understand how bird populations are going. This community of people, and I want to give a shout out to some sitting up here in the gallery, this community of people is the backbone of our understanding of these birds in Darwin Harbour, and these volunteers have so much passion for this work and for sharing their knowledge with the community. The volunteer organisation BirdLife Top End coordinates this shorebird monitoring program as well as all community engagement activities on shorebirds in Darwin Harbour. This weekend, as I said, BirdLife Top End and their community will say farewell to the shorebirds as they depart for their annual migration to the breeding grounds in the Northern Hemisphere. I'm so delighted to be a patron of the annual Darwin Garamilla Shorebird Festival, which happens when the birds come back in September. I'm also delighted to hear that my incoming colleague Ed Smelt, the new MLA for Nightcliff, will be joining us for this celebration, the celebration of the shorebirds this weekend at Nightcliff. And I'd like to invite everyone in this chamber to come and see these amazing birds who grace us with their presence and then head off on their 10,000 kilometre incredible journey. Madam Speaker, we are so lucky to have these beautiful birds come here, and I call on this government to recognise their obligations to protect these threatened shorebirds and the coastal environments, and to listen to the community of people who want shorebird protection embedded in the decision-making of Darwin Harbour. We owe it to future generations to ensure that these global wonders can return to Darwin for years to come. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Daly.